I am Richard Coleman, 67 years old, and I'm still trying to process what my daughter did to me 3 weeks ago. After 40 years as a civil engineer in Phoenix, after putting her through college, after holding her hand through every crisis she ever faced, my own daughter, Jessica, sent me an invoice for $175,000 to fund her wedding, while simultaneously informing me that my presence would not be required at the ceremony. At the bottom of that invoice, in her fiancé's handwriting, was a note that read, "Consider this your contribution to our future. Your attendance would complicate things." I read those words 3 times. Then I sat back in my chair and smiled. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile a man gets when he finally understands exactly what game is being played and realizes he holds cards nobody expected him to have. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever had to teach someone that family isn't a subscription service you can bill without providing access, hit that like button and subscribe. My late wife Caroline and I raised Jessica in a modest house in Scottsdale. 3 bedrooms, a small pool, a garage where I spent weekends teaching her how things worked. Caroline passed 4 years ago from a sudden stroke, leaving me to watch our daughter's transformation alone. During college and her early career, Jessica was everything a father could hope for. Dean's List at Arizona State, marketing degree, called every Sunday without fail. The kind of daughter who remembered birthdays and showed up when it mattered. Then she met Tyler Richardson at some networking event in Los Angeles 18 months ago, and everything changed. Tyler came from what he called generational wealth in Newport Beach. The kind of family that measured success by zip codes and country club memberships. He drove a Tesla he couldn't actually afford, wore watches that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and spoke about building empires without ever explaining what business he was actually in. When I asked directly, he gave vague answers about consulting and investments and multiple revenue streams. The first warning sign came at Thanksgiving dinner last year. Tyler spent the entire meal on his phone, occasionally looking up to make dismissive comments about the quaint neighborhood I lived in. When Caroline's sister asked about his family, Tyler laughed and said his parents were on a different level and probably wouldn't be comfortable in such an intimate setting. Jessica said nothing, just smiled, that tight smile she'd developed since meeting him. 6 months ago, they announced their engagement. I was happy for her, genuinely happy, until Tyler started talking about the wedding. Not as a celebration of love, but as what he called a strategic brand launch. He wanted 400 guests, most of whom Jessica had never met. He wanted a venue in Napa Valley that charged more per hour than I made in a week. He wanted coverage from lifestyle magazines and a professional social media team to document every moment. When I asked how they planned to pay for this, Tyler smiled that smile I'd come to recognize as his handling the help expression. Family supports family, Richard. That's how it works in our world. His world. As if I was just visiting. 3 weeks ago, the invoice arrived by courier. $175,000 itemized down to the penny. Venue rental at $45,000. Catering for $400 at $62,000. Photography and videography package at $28,000. Floral arrangements at $18,000. And at the bottom, a honeymoon fund request for $22,000 because, according to Tyler's note, they deserve to start their new life properly. But here's what made my blood run cold. Attached to the invoice was a letter from Jessica explaining that due to complicated family dynamics and image considerations, my attendance at the wedding would be limited to a brief appearance at the reception. No ceremony, no father-daughter dance, no walking her down the aisle. Tyler's parents had expressed concerns about mixing different social circles, and Jessica felt it was best to prioritize their comfort. My comfort, apparently, was not a factor worth considering. I called Jessica immediately. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice carrying that defensive tone I'd heard more and more often lately. "Dad, I knew you'd overreact." "Overreact? You want me to pay for your wedding but not attend it?" "You can attend the reception. We're just trying to manage expectations." "Whose expectations?" "Because I have expectations too, Jessica. I expect my daughter to treat me like her father, not her personal ATM." Silence. Then Tyler's voice in the background. coaching her. Tell him it's complicated. Tell him he doesn't understand. Dad, you don't understand the position we're in. Tyler's family has certain standards. Standards that exclude the man who raised you? More silence. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. Dad, I love you, but Tyler and I are building something important. We can't have elements that don't fit our brand. Elements. That's what I'd become. An element that didn't fit their brand. I hung up without another word and sat in my kitchen for a long time, looking at the photograph of Caroline on the mantel. In it, she's holding newborn Jessica, both of them glowing with the kind of happiness that doesn't require an audience or a social media strategy. I traced her face with my finger and made a silent promise. I would not fund my own exclusion, but I would teach my daughter a lesson she desperately needed to learn. That evening, I powered up my laptop and started researching. First, the venue, Silverleaf Estate in Napa Valley. Their website was all rolling vineyards and sunset photography, the kind of place that charges extra for existing. But buried in their vendor requirements, I found something interesting. They required 50% deposits with strict cancellation policies, and they demanded written authorization from the listed financial guarantor for any changes to contracted services. Financial guarantor. My name was listed as the primary payment contact on every vendor contract, which meant I had legal authority over what got paid and what didn't. Next, I researched Tyler's family, the Richardsons of Newport Beach. What I found made me sit back in my chair. They weren't old money. They were old debt. Tyler's father had declared bankruptcy twice in the last decade. Their family estate was actually a rental property they'd been living in for 3 years. The Tesla Tyler drove was leased. The watches were knockoffs. The entire Richardson empire was a carefully constructed illusion designed to attract exactly the kind of opportunity my daughter represented. They weren't marrying Jessica. They were acquiring a financial lifeline, and I was supposed to be the one providing it. I called my financial advisor the next morning. Robert Chen had been helping me manage my retirement accounts for 15 years. Ever since Caroline's diagnosis taught me the value of having someone who understood both money and emergencies. Robert, I need to set up a restricted escrow account with very specific conditions. I want to control vendor payments down to the penny, wedding-related. My daughter thinks she can spend my money without my presence. Robert's voice was careful. Richard, are you sure about this? Family situations can get complicated. They're already complicated. I'm just adding clarity. The escrow account was set up by that afternoon. Every vendor on Jessica's list would now need my written approval before seeing a single dollar. Power and lighting, basic food service, insurance. Nothing decorative, nothing promotional, nothing for show. My phone buzzed almost immediately. A text from Tyler. Richard, we need to discuss the vendor situation. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. I didn't call. Instead, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Daniel Reyes, Jessica's best friend from high school. They'd grown up together, been inseparable through college, until Tyler had systematically isolated her from anyone who remembered who she used to be. Daniel answered on the second ring. Mr. Coleman? Is everything okay? Daniel, I need your help. It's about Jessica and this wedding. A long pause. I figured you'd call eventually. She hasn't returned my messages in 6 months. Tyler told her I was a negative influence on her personal brand. Her personal brand. Right. Daniel, do you still have contacts in the events industry? I work for a catering company now, actually. Small operation, honest work, nothing fancy, but we do good food for real people. Perfect. I need information. Vendor timelines, payment schedules, anything that might help me understand what I'm really dealing with. Daniel's voice shifted into something more determined. Mr. Coleman, from what I've heard through the grapevine, this wedding isn't about Jessica at all. Tyler's been telling people it's his launch event for some lifestyle consulting business. The guest list reads like a who's who of Los Angeles social climbers. This whole thing is designed to establish the Richardsons as players in a world they can't actually afford. And Jessica? She's the credibility. The smart, successful marketing executive with a loving family and solid background. Tyler's using her to validate his story. My stomach tightened. I'd suspected manipulation, but hearing it confirmed was different. Daniel, can you get me specifics? Payment deadlines? Vendor concerns? Anything I can use to understand my options? I can do better than that. I know someone who works at Silverleaf Estate. Let me make some calls. After we hung up, I walked to the photograph of Caroline. The afternoon light caught her smile in a way that made it seem almost knowing, as if she'd seen this day coming and trusted me to handle it right. I'm trying, sweetheart, I whispered. I'm trying to save our girl from becoming someone we wouldn't recognize. Daniel called back 2 hours later with information that changed everything. Mr. Coleman, Tyler's been running around telling vendors that you've already approved everything. He forged your signature on several authorization forms. And here's the kicker. He took out a loan through some private lender to cover the deposits. High interest, short term. The kind of loan that destroys people who can't pay it back. How much? $60,000. Due in full 3 months after the wedding. And they expected me to cover it. Worse, they listed you as a secondary guarantor on the loan without your knowledge. If Tyler defaults, the lender comes after you. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just manipulation. This was fraud. Daniel, I need documentation of everything. The forged signatures, the loan terms, all of it. Already working on it. And Mr. Coleman? Jessica doesn't know about the loan. Tyler's been handling all the finances. She thinks her dad is just going to write a check, and everyone's going to be happy. Then it's time someone told her the truth. The confrontation happened 3 days later. I asked Jessica to meet me at a coffee shop in Tempe, neutral territory, public enough that Tyler wouldn't feel comfortable coaching her through every response. She arrived looking tired, thinner than I remembered, wearing clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. When she saw me, her face showed a mixture of guilt and defiance that broke my heart. Dad, before you start lecturing me, sit down, Jessica. This isn't a lecture. This is a conversation between a father and daughter who've lost track of each other. She sat, clutching her designer purse like a shield. Tyler says you're being difficult about the budget. Tyler forged my signature on vendor contracts and took out a loan in my name. Did he mention that? The color drained from her face. That's not possible. Tyler wouldn't. I pulled out the folder Daniel had prepared. Copies of authorization forms with signatures that looked like mine but weren't. Loan documents listing me as a guarantor. Credit inquiries I'd never authorized. He would. He did. And you let him, Jessica, because somewhere along the way you forgot that your father raised you to be smarter than this. She stared at the documents, her hands trembling. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. Dad, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know about the loan. Did you know about excluding me from your wedding? Silence. Did you know Tyler's family isn't wealthy? That they've been bankrupt twice? That everything about their lifestyle is debt disguised as success? More silence. Tears now. Dad, I love him. Do you? Or do you love the idea of him? Because the man I've been observing doesn't love you, Jessica. He loves what you represent. Access, credibility, a backup plan when his fantasies collapse. That's not fair. What's not fair is expecting your father to fund a wedding he's not welcome to attend. What's not fair is putting my name on debts I didn't authorize. What's not fair is asking me to validate a marriage built on lies and exclusion. Jessica was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad, what am I supposed to do? Everything's already planned. People are expecting this wedding. Cancel it. Scale it back. Marry Tyler at City Hall if you actually love him. But stop pretending that image is more important than integrity. Tyler will never agree to that. Then you need to decide what matters more. A man who loves the real you, or a man who's constructed a version of you that fits his business plan. I left her sitting in that coffee shop, hoping the seeds I'd planted would take root. But I also knew that Tyler wouldn't give up easily. He had too much invested in this scheme. I was right. 2 days later, Tyler himself appeared at my front door. He looked different than I remembered. The confident swagger was still there, but underneath I could see cracks, desperation, wearing a designer suit. Richard, we need to talk. Do we? Jessica is upset. She thinks I've been dishonest with her. I need you to help me fix this. I leaned against the doorframe. How exactly do you think I should help you? Tell her you overreacted. Tell her the loan was a misunderstanding. Tell her my family's situation is temporary. Help me calm her down so we can proceed with the wedding. Why would I do any of that? Tyler's mask slipped slightly, revealing something uglier underneath. Because if this wedding doesn't happen, Jessica will be humiliated. Her reputation will be destroyed. Everyone will know her engagement was a failure. Her reputation will be destroyed, or yours. Richard, be reasonable. I know you're upset about the ceremony situation, but that can be adjusted. My parents have reconsidered. You can walk her down the aisle. You can have your moment. This isn't about moments, Tyler. This is about character. You forged my signature. You took out loans in my name. You've been lying to my daughter for 18 months. And now you're standing on my porch trying to manipulate me the same way you've manipulated her. Tyler's face hardened. You don't understand the opportunity you're destroying. This wedding isn't just about Jessica and me. It's about positioning, about access to people who can change our lives. Your lives or your lifestyle. Because I've seen your family's financial records, Tyler. You're not wealthy. You're drowning in debt and looking for a lifeboat. And you thought my daughter and I were going to be that lifeboat. You're making a mistake, Richard. A serious mistake. No, I'm correcting one. You can walk away from my porch now, or I can call the police and report the forged documents. Your choice. He left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. That evening, Daniel called with news that shifted everything again. Mr. Coleman, I found something you need to see. Tyler has a LinkedIn profile for a company called Richardson Lifestyle Consulting. It launched 3 months ago. According to the business plan he's been sharing with potential investors, his upcoming wedding is listed as the inaugural brand event for the company. He's literally using his marriage as a product launch. What kind of business is this supposed to be? Get this. Lifestyle coaching for young professionals who want to level up their social status. He's planning to use the wedding footage and photos as marketing material. Jessica is listed as the brand partner, but there's no indication she knows about any of this. I sat down heavily. He's not just using her, he's monetizing her. It gets worse. The investors he's pitched to? They're expecting to see a certain type of wedding, wealthy in-laws, luxury venue, the whole package. If this wedding doesn't happen exactly as Tyler promised, his business plan collapses, and he loses the investor commitments. How much money are we talking about? Based on the pitch deck I found, Tyler's expecting $200,000 in seed funding within 6 months of the wedding, but only if he can prove the lifestyle brand is authentic. Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. The expensive venue, the 400 guests I'd never heard of, the exclusion of family members who might not photograph well for investor presentations. Tyler wasn't planning a wedding. He was staging a commercial, and he expected me to produce it while staying off camera. I made my decision that night. I would not just refuse to pay. I would expose the entire operation. The next morning, I called every vendor on Jessica's wedding list. To each one, I explained that I was the listed financial guarantor, and that no payments would be authorized without my written approval. I also informed them that certain signatures on existing contracts may have been forged, and that they should verify all authorizations directly with me. Within hours, the chaos began. The venue called Tyler demanding payment confirmation. The caterer called Jessica asking about timeline changes. The photographer called both of them asking if the contract was still valid. And then Tyler made his final mistake. He called a meeting with both families to resolve the situation. His parents flew in from Newport Beach. I drove to Los Angeles. We all gathered in a rented conference room that Tyler had dressed up to look like an office, complete with Richardson Lifestyle Consulting logos on everything. Tyler's father was exactly what I expected. A man who'd spent his life projecting an image he couldn't sustain, now facing the consequences of that projection. His mother was nervous, twitchy, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation unfolding around her. Jessica sat between them and me, looking like someone who'd finally started seeing clearly, but wasn't sure what to do about it. Tyler opened with a prepared speech about alignment and mutual opportunity and family synergy. When he finished, his father jumped in with comments about how forward-thinking the wedding plan was and how I should be honored to participate in such a strategic partnership. I let them talk, and then I pulled out my folder. Tyler, these are copies of the authorization forms you submitted to vendors with my forged signature. I've had a handwriting expert confirm they're fraudulent. Tyler's face went white. His father started to speak, but I continued. These are the loan documents showing that you listed me as a guarantor without my knowledge or consent. That's fraud, Tyler. Criminal fraud. Now wait a minute, Tyler's father tried to interject. And this, I said, pulling out the final document, is the business plan for Richardson Lifestyle Consulting, which lists my daughter's wedding as its primary marketing vehicle. The wedding you expected me to pay for. The wedding you planned to monetize while excluding me from participation. Jessica grabbed the business plan and started reading. With every page, her face changed. Confusion, recognition, anger. Tyler, she said quietly, what is this? Baby, it's just business strategy. I was going to tell you once everything was in place. You were going to tell me that our wedding is a product launch? It's not like that. It's an opportunity for both of us. Jessica stood up slowly, still holding the business plan. You told me your family was wealthy. You told me they were on a different level. You told me my father was too unsophisticated for your world. Jessica, let me explain. You forged my father's signature. You took out loans in his name. You planned to turn our marriage into a marketing campaign without asking me. She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. Don't apologize to me, sweetheart. Apologize to yourself for accepting treatment you never deserved. Tyler made one last desperate attempt. Jessica, if you walk away from this, you're walking away from everything we've built. The lifestyle, the connections, the future we planned. Jessica looked at him for a long moment. We didn't plan anything, Tyler. You planned it. I was just the investment you needed to make it happen. She walked out of that conference room, and I followed. Behind us, I could hear Tyler's father already starting to blame him for the collapse of their scheme. We drove back to Phoenix in near silence. Jessica stared out the window, processing everything she'd learned. When we finally pulled into my driveway, she turned to me with red-rimmed eyes. Dad, what do I do now? You start over. With honesty, with integrity, with people who love you for who you actually are, not what you can provide. I wasted 18 months on someone who saw me as an investment, and you'll spend the rest of your life never making that mistake again. That's not wasted time, Jessica. That's education. The cleanup took weeks. We canceled every vendor contract, paying only the legitimate deposits I'd actually authorized. Tyler's loan defaulted when he couldn't produce the wedding that validated his business plan, and his investors withdrew their commitments. The last I heard, the Richardsons had relocated to somewhere in Texas, presumably to start their scheme again with new targets. Jessica moved back to Phoenix temporarily, staying in her old bedroom while she figured out her next steps. We spent evenings cooking together in the kitchen, where she'd learned to make her mother's recipes, talking about everything except what had happened. Sometimes Caroline felt so present in those moments that I almost forgot she was gone. One evening, 3 months after the conference room confrontation, Jessica came downstairs, holding something I hadn't seen in years, her mother's engagement ring. Simple, modest, nothing like the 3-carat stone Tyler had presented with such ceremony. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. How did you know Mom was the right one? How did you know it would last? I took the ring from her and held it up to the light. I knew because she never asked me to be anyone other than who I was. She never tried to upgrade me or position me or brand me. She loved the man who worked with his hands and came home tired and couldn't afford fancy vacations. And I loved her the same way. What if I never find that? Then you'll be alone, which is infinitely better than being with someone who loves an edited version of you that doesn't actually exist. Jessica started crying, but different tears than before. Cleaner somehow. I almost married someone who was embarrassed by my family. Someone who wanted to use my wedding as a commercial. Someone who saw love as a transaction. But you didn't. You figured it out in time. And that took courage, Jessica. More courage than walking down any aisle. She took the ring back and slipped it onto her finger, just to see how it looked. Mom would be so disappointed in how I treated you. Your mother would be proud that you found your way back to yourself. That's all she ever wanted for you. 6 months later, Jessica called me on a Sunday morning, just like she used to before Tyler. She'd taken a job at a smaller marketing firm, one that valued her skills more than her connections. She'd reconnected with Daniel and other friends Tyler had systematically pushed away. She was dating someone new, a middle school teacher named Marcus, who drove a 10-year-old Honda and thought expensive restaurants were a waste of money. "Dad," Marcus asked about meeting you. "He's nervous because he heard about everything that happened with Tyler. Tell him I don't bite. And tell him the only thing I care about is whether he treats you with respect." "He does, Dad. He actually does." That Thanksgiving, Marcus carved the turkey while Jessica and I made her mother's stuffing. We ate in the dining room where Caroline used to host holiday dinners, using the same dishes, the same serving pieces, the same traditions that didn't require documentation or audience approval. After dinner, Marcus excused himself to help clean up, leaving Jessica and me alone in the living room. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I found some of Tyler's old business documents while I was cleaning out my apartment. He had a whole folder about you. Research about your finances, your property values, your retirement accounts. He'd been planning how to access your money since before he proposed." I nodded slowly. "I suspected something like that." "You did? And you never said anything?" "I hoped I was wrong. I hoped you'd see through him without me having to prove it. But when the invoice arrived, when I saw that I was expected to pay but not participate, I knew exactly what kind of man he was. Why didn't you just tell me? Would you have believed me?" Jessica was quiet for a long moment. "Probably not. I was too invested in the fantasy. That's why I had to let you discover the truth yourself. Some lessons can't be taught. They have to be learned." She leaned her head against my shoulder, the way she used to when she was small and needed comfort. "Dad, I'm sorry I called you an element. I'm sorry I let Tyler make me think you didn't fit our brand. I'm sorry I ever forgot that you're not an element. You're my father. And you're my daughter. Nothing Tyler Richardson or anyone else does can change that. The wedding that was supposed to cost $175,000 never happened. But something more valuable took its place. A daughter who remembered who she was. A relationship rebuilt on truth instead of transaction. And a lesson that couldn't be purchased with any amount of money. That real love doesn't require a costume or a spotlight. It doesn't demand audiences or approval ratings. It just asks you to show up, be honest, and treat the people who raised you with the same respect they've always shown you. Marcus proposed last month. A quiet moment at sunset in the backyard. No photographers, no witnesses, no social media documentation. Just two people who loved each other, making promises they intended to keep. When Jessica called to tell me, she was crying happy tears for the first time since Caroline died. "Dad, we want a small ceremony. Family and close friends, maybe 30 people. And I want you to walk me down the aisle. No complications, no image concerns. Just my father, doing what fathers do." "I would be honored, sweetheart." "And Dad, the budget is $8,000. We're paying for it ourselves." I laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. "That sounds perfect, Jessica. Absolutely perfect. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the courage to disappoint the wrong people. Sometimes teaching hurts more than lecturing. And sometimes a father's job isn't to fund his child's fantasies, but to model what integrity looks like when the lights go dim and the cameras stop rolling. The invoice for $175,000 sits in a drawer in my desk now, not as a reminder of what almost happened, but as evidence of what didn't. My daughter found her way back from a manipulation designed to consume her. She chose truth over transaction, substance over show, family over followers. And that, as Caroline would have said, is worth more than all the designer weddings in California. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that real love doesn't require a performance, and that family bonds are worth more than social status. Hit like and subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to be billed for their own exclusion.